What's the one question nearly every aquarium hobbyist asks themselves at some point? Can I breed fish for profit? And in this video, I'll be sharing with you some tips to help you get started in this venture. Hi, Tony here from Aquarium Obsessions, bringing you tips, strategies and reviews to help you grow your aquarium hobby. So if you're new to this channel, please consider clicking the subscribe button below so you don't miss any future videos. And I'll also leave any links to any of the equipment that is mentioned in this video in the description also. Nearly every aquarium hobbyist has at some point asked themselves, can I breed my fish for profit? And the answer is yes, but there are a few things that you need to consider first. When considering what fish to go for, you need to think about what tank size you'll need, how expensive the initial outlay will be for them, how hard they will be to sell at the end. Also, what requirements do they need, what water parameters do they need. Some fish will only breed in certain water parameters, so bear that in mind. Now, the easiest fish to use in a breeding fish for profit project is something like a live bearer, like a guppy. These fish will produce a lot of offspring very, very quickly. They are so easy to breed. You realistically only need to put a male and a female together and you'll have babies within a month. That is how easy they will breed. It's a great fish to start off with because you will get a lot of fish, which means that you'll have a lot of fish to sell on. Now, because they're a cheap fish, it means that you'll be able to sell them easier. They are an affordable fish for everybody, whether you're a beginner to the hobby or an experienced hobbyist already. They are a great fish to start with and to use in a project like this. If you're considering to go for more expensive fish, something like a discus, you have to look at what size of tank they need, what their water parameters are, how long the youngsters will take to grow to a size where you can sell them for the money that you require to cover at least your costs for these fish. The initial outlay for something like a discus is a lot more than the cheaper guppies. Unless you buy an established pair, you'll need to buy at least 6 juveniles to grow together to form a pair, hopefully. This takes time. It's not as quick. You don't realise any profit as quick as what you would do with a live bearer like the guppies. But when you get to the end and you've grown your discus and you can sell them on for a higher profit, yes, it feels good. It's taken a lot longer to get there and it's been a lot more work, but the money's better. But don't get me wrong, breeding discus is very rewarding and they're a lovely fish. Would put nobody off from trying it if you want to. But for a first timer, I would stick to something relatively easy like a guppy. Okay, now you've chosen what fish you want to breed, you need to now research what size tank you need as well as what equipment. When it comes to breeding, most fish can be started off in a smaller tank. A lot of fish will be happy in a pair breeding in a small tank. But once the youngsters are born, hatched, if they're from egg layers, then they will need to be put into a separate tank, a grow-out tank. If you're starting off with a larger tank and you can accommodate the parents as well as the siblings, then that's fine. But you need to be aware that you may need more than one tank to house your breeding fish and any offspring. So now you have your tank sorted. What filtration should you use? Well, for a breeding tank, you cannot go wrong with the good old sponge filter. With this, all you require is a decent air pump, air line, and the sponge filter itself. The sponge filter it has a huge surface area for beneficial bacteria to live and grow on. They're very economical, and this is why a lot of people use them on multiple tanks. You'll find that you go into most fish stores and they will have sponge filters in them. You look online at other videos, other breeders, and they all use sponge filters. So cannot fault them at all. The other thing people ask about is, what lighting do I need? Well, that all depends on the plants that you have. Now, I would recommend something like a Java moss. Very, very cheap, very fast growing, and they need very little light. You can use artificial plants as well. You just need to make sure that they have a lot of places where the fry can get into and hide, so the parents or other fish can't get in to eat them. I personally use a Java moss, but any moss will do. You can use Java fern. I say again, it's all about having spaces where the fry can get in to hide from the parents or other fish. They will also feed off the biofilm that grows on the moss itself, so it will be a food source as well. So you've chosen your fish, you've got your tank and filter and lighting, and you've got some plants to put in it. What's the next thing you need to think about? Wouldn't it be nice to have something in your tank to earn you more cash? Two creatures that I would recommend to add to your tank to earn you some extra money are snails and shrimp. Now, snails aren't popular with everyone. They are part of a cleanup crew. They eat algae, they eat old fish food. They help keep your tank cleaner than what your tank would be without them. So you can get some lovely looking snails that add to your tank. Yes, I know there's lots of snails that are classed as pest snails, but there are some lovely looking snails out there, something like a ram's horn snail or a mystery snail, and they can command quite high prices. Another thing that you could put in your tank are shrimp, very popular in the aquarium hobby. Some people just have shrimp tanks because they are fantastic creatures. Again, they are used as part of a cleanup crew. They will graze on algae as well. They will also graze on waste within the tank, and they are really good to look at. You can get some fantastic colours, and some of the different breeds and colours do command some very high prices, which is good for you if you can breed these, but bearing in mind that you have to pay for these first, so it increases your initial outlay. Okay, so you've got your tank filled. You've got fish, you've got shrimp, and you've got snails, and you've got your moss, and it's all growing, all breeding. How do you sell it? The best way and easiest way is to do a deal with your local fish store. Now, I don't mean something like a Pets at Home or a large retail store. I mean a local fish store. Go in and speak to the fish store owner. Go in and speak to the staff. Get a relationship going with them. They are more willing to buy off a local breeder than some of these fish farms that they have to import from abroad, because they run the risk of losing fish through transportation. They run the risk of getting diseases from abroad. So if they can buy from a local hobbyist, they reduce, not get rid of, but reduce the risks to them. Now, your local fish store will probably only pay you something like 50p, which is the going rate for something like guppies and platies. But the more expensive fish that you have to sell them, the more they will give you. Now, they will have a massive markup for what they sell them on for, but it is beneficial for you to be able to shift your fish quickly and gain a profit than having them sat in your aquariums at home, eating your food, costing you money for your electricity. So in the end, it is better to have fast turnover rather than holding on to your fish for the best price. Now, you can go down the route of selling them privately, and a lot of people sell them on eBay. Yes, on eBay you're likely to be able to make more money to sell your fish at a higher price, but you've also got to take into consideration how much more time it's going to take you to sell these fish. One, you've got to put all the listings on, which you've got to pay for when you add them and once you've sold your fish. Once you've sold your fish, you've also got to pay for and arrange shipping. Now, I know that comes in with the price that the buyer pays, but you have to deal with the courier. You also have to communicate with the buyer as to when they're going to be in to sign for the fish, to collect the fish, because they don't want a fish sitting on their doorstep for 24 hours if they're out, and all the fish are dead by the time they come to open the box. So there's a lot more that has to go into it when you're selling online. Very beneficial if you don't mind all the extra work, and you will earn more money that way. But personally, I go for the local fish store route. A lot easier to deal with, and you get a greater turnover of fish, which means you've got nothing hanging around in your tanks at home. Okay, that's the basics covered. Now we'll take a quick look at my breeding fish for profit tank. And here's my breeding fish for profit tank. The guppies that I have in here are red grass guppies. We have 2 adults, a male and a female, with at least a dozen to 15 youngsters from 2 separate spawnings. There are small numbers simply because they're in a tank kept with their parents, so some of the fry were eaten, but also the female is quite young herself, so she's not providing as many youngsters as what a more mature female would provide. The oldest will be ready to sell in about 7 or 8 weeks if I decide to sell them. I may decide to keep them and form a colony, which would provide more youngsters on a regular basis. We also have red ramshorn snails in the tank. I also have blue dream cherry shrimp in here as well. Now the only reason I went for the blue dream shrimp is because they're a different colour, slightly more expensive than the red cherry shrimp, which is the main popular one that a lot of people go for in a breeding fish for profit tank. They command a slightly higher price, which is an added bonus. Again, you'll make more money when coming to sell them. Now I've got 2 sponge filters running in this tank. I only really need the one. The second in there is just cycling, ready for another tank if I need to, for a quarantine tank or a medication tank. We also have a 100-watt heater in this tank, and just a small cheap LED light. Because we have a Java moss in here, you don't need to have a very bright light. They don't need a lot of light for it to grow. And the Java moss, as I said, is great for hiding fry and small shrimp. And there you have it. There's some ideas and tips to get you started with your breeding fish for profit project. I hope this video has helped, but I'm sure there's lots of things that I've forgotten to mention. So if anyone wants to get in touch, please do. It'd be great to see what you have to say. And I will leave all the links to the equipment that has been mentioned in this video in the description below. So thanks again for watching, and if you did enjoy the video, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos.